Okay, I want to call this November 18th meeting of the Escondido Historical Preservation Commission to order. If you'll stand with me and salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Purvis? Commissioner Cowan?
Present.
Chair Span?
Present.
Commissioner Hanlon?
Present.
Okay, I trust everybody's had a chance to look at the minutes. Do we have any comments or? Oh, I'll move to approve the minutes of our last meeting. I did read them. Okay.
Commissioner Hanlon, I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor? Are we hand?
Yeah, you can use your hands. Yeah, that'd be great. Perfect.
Okay, unanimous. Okay, we have one written communication up here. Is that it?
Yes, this pertains to the item associated with PL 21-0304. Would you like me to read it now, or would you like to wait until that item?
We can wait till that item. Okay. Oral communication. Does anybody in the audience wish to speak about anything that's not on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go right on to public hearing. Current business, H1, PL 21-0416, a detached garage addition.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jasmine Brunovich, Assistant Planner, and I will be presenting item number 1 on the Historic Preservation Agenda, case number PL 21-0416. The applicant, Mr. Greg Marsh, is the new owner of the property. Address is 438 East 5th Avenue. The site is located on the north side of East 5th Avenue between South Ivy Street and South Hickory Street, and it's located within the Old Escondido Neighborhood Historic District. The zoning designation of the property is R16. It's a single-family residential zoning with 6,000 square feet minimum lot sizes. There is an existing house, a single-story house, that's located on the front half of that lot. The house was built circa 1908. It has both Craftsman and colonial revival elements. It is identified as an individually significant historic structure, and it was placed on the city's local register on June 2nd, 1992. It was mentioned on the historic listing report that this house is one of the finest Craftsman houses in Escondido, and it's in a row of Craftsman houses on this portion of 5th Avenue. The applicant has submitted a certificate of appropriateness application for the construction of a 576 square foot detached 2-car garage. This garage will be located on the rear half of the lot and would take access from the alley. The design of the garage will be in a Craftsman style with horizontal wood siding, and it incorporates additional design elements that's similar to the existing house. The garage will have asphalt shingle composition style roof in a dark gray color, and the walls will be painted a dark green color with white trim. And that will also match the existing historic residence. The applicant is also proposing a new 6-foot high cedar wood fence that will secure the property. A majority of the homes on this block have detached garages along the alley, and I'm sorry, this line here is the existing house, the front elevation, and the rear elevation, and that shows the pad area of that detached garage. And as you can see on these photos, some of the garage structures, the detached garages, have stucco walls, and some have wood siding on the walls. Per Article 40 of the Escondido Zoning Code, a request to to construct a new structure on a property with a historic resource and that's located within a historical district is subject to the design guidelines for homeowners of historic resources and requires issuance of a certificate of appropriateness. And the request is also subject to design review by the Historic Preservation Commission. And there's additional photos of the alley with detached garages. And staff recommends that the Historic Preservation Commission recommend approval of the certificate of appropriateness for the proposed detached garage. And the applicant, unfortunately, is not able to attend today's meeting, but he has asked for design review recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of staff?
Commissioner Purvis, sorry, my mic is really loud here. What is the window material?
Sorry, I have to open the plans. I know that there's single hung windows. I just don't know. I don't think it's noted on here.
Commissioner, are you talking about the garage door or the other window?
I was talking about the windows that are proposed for the garage.
Well, I think, personally, I can't believe how great that place looks. I drive by it all the time just to get another look at it. I've loved that house for many years. I'm sure we can move forward and condition it with wood windows. I can't believe they would do anything else.
Commissioner Hanlon, I did also have a question regarding those windows. The way they're pictured here they don't appear to match the rest of the home in existence. If you look at the picture that they've presented here, is there some way that we can note that they should somewhere more closely match the existing windows on the home? Those windows, that one right there.
Pretty hard to get an idea what the existing windows in the home look like. I think as long as they're wood windows, I'd be happy. Is there any other discussion?
Yes, Commissioner Purvis, so the window, okay, so I guess a couple other questions. So we don't know the material of the window, and it might be in the window schedule, but I didn't see it. I thought maybe it was that you had maybe come by it. Also, the materials for the garage, it says in one of the documents, it says that the shingle is actually optional, and then that the siding itself is, it looks like it's clabbered, but I can't tell. So it looks like it's clabbered on the base, and then the gable is shingle, and I was just curious for clarification purposes. It's a sheet 3 of 7 in their drawings.
It was my understanding that they were proposing the shingle on the top half of that wall. Would you prefer to see the shingle, or can they do all horizontal wood siding?
Well, we're being asked to make a recommendation on their design review, and I just wanted to get clarification on what's actually being proposed versus proposed as optional. So I think it looks lovely. I agree with Commissioner Hanlon. I would like to see the divided lights be similar, at least on I guess the main elevation of it. It looks like the historic house is actually has a different divided light pattern in the front, and then the other elevation windows are single pane over single pane, so they're double hung, but they only have one pane. And then my other question is, when this property was originally designated, it also appears that the garage had been designated, and I'd like to know when that garage was demolished.
I could not find any information on that, the demolition of the garage. I do know that it was prior to when the property owner purchased the property. The aerial photos that I had looked at was prior to 2015.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question?
One more, I'm sorry.
One more.
I
Go ahead.
apologize.
Go ahead.
The fence, I was curious where the fence was going to be. I know it's important to have a fence for privacy, but just curious.
The fence would be located, the fence is along the front now, as you can see on the site plan drawing, the bold black line on both sides of the house. And my understanding is they plan to continue to fence along the perimeter of the lot and enclosing the alley side.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. That was open it up to discussion. Do I have a motion?
Commissioner Hanlon, I'm not sure if this motion is appropriate, but can we move to accept this with the caveat that the windows be wooden and reflect the dividing lights as to the rest of the home?
So, just for clarification for the commission, the action here is making design review recommendations that will be utilized for the development of the certificate of appropriateness. So I would absolutely say that if there are particular design elements associated with that you want to make associated with it, I would include it absolutely as part of your motion, but staff has been taking notes as well.
Commissioner Purvis, the fence in the front yard, if they could, it's a historic district, and one of the things about the historic district, I didn't see any photos that demonstrate any type of 6-foot full wooden fencing like that. Mostly on the, oh, I guess it's there already, right? Is that a 4-foot or a 6-foot? I mean, it's probably hard to know. Yes, the photograph that's up currently. The picture, like that doesn't look so bad. The scale looks good, but when we see the 6-foot, when I think 6-foot fence and I see what's, in the drawings, it doesn't convey very well. And so maybe if that's a 6-foot fence and they're replacing it in kind with similar height.
I think that is
great,
a 6-foot high fence. I'm, a great judge of tallness, being so tall myself, and I would say that looks about a 6-foot high fence, and I'm guessing that they're just going to continue that same style along. And we can continue, if you feel that is as existing is acceptable, we can make a note to continue as existing.
Commissioner Purvis agrees with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're entitled to their privacy, and I'm sure that they must have gone through you to get a certificate for that, didn't they? It's obviously got the appropriate setback, and at that setback, the height is according to code. Anyway, we're talking about, there's a motion on the floor. Do we have a second on that?
Commissioner Purvis seconds.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay, 4 yes votes. So H1 PL 21-0416 passes with the condition that the wood windows, that they are wood windows and that they do more closely reflect the style of the existing house. Okay. Going to H2 PL 20-0612 Gober Residence addition.
And as Jasmine switches out, I will take this opportunity also to introduce to you Veronica Moronis. She is new with the city of Escondido. This is your second or third week already? Fourth week already. Time flies. Veronica Moronis is our new senior planner. She joins us actually from the private sector, but having spent time, though, in the cities of both Carlsbad, or in the cities of San Clemente, Carlsbad, and Oceanside, so that's more than both. So we are very happy to have her join our team.
Good afternoon, Chair Span, Commissioners. My name is Veronica Moronis, as Sean just noted, and I'm the new senior planner, and I will be presenting agenda item 2 to you this afternoon. And this is a request for a certificate of appropriateness for an addition to an existing single-family residence that is located within the old Escondido neighborhood district. So the project site is an approximately 6,700 square foot lot located at 334 East 9th Avenue within the old Escondido neighborhood district. The project site has a land use designation of Urban 1 and a zoning designation of R16, single-family residential. The site is currently developed with an approximately 1,500 square foot residence and detached 2-car garage, and fronts 9th Avenue while maintaining alley access at the rear. The existing residence and site frontage are depicted on this slide, outlined in red, and the project site is surrounded by existing single and multifamily residential development to the east, west, north, and south. On February 25th, a request for a certificate of appropriateness for an addition to the existing single-family residence was brought before the Commission, entailing a 219 square foot addition to the primary bedroom and 130 square foot front porch. The request also involved painting the residence white with black trim, and the HPC did not support the request for the application, and as such, the applicant has subsequently redesigned the project. So the revised project entails a request for a certificate of appropriateness to allow a 51 square foot addition to enclose the existing front porch and construct a new 147 square foot front porch. The proposed project would retain the existing exterior materials and colorways, with the proposed addition to match the existing light stucco. The proposed front porch would include wood railing consistent with the current front porch's design. And pursuant to Article 40 of the Zoning Code, the proposed project is subject to design review by the Historic Preservation Commission because the proposed project qualifies as a major project as it requests an addition which includes porch enclosures within the historic district. The existing residence was constructed in the early 1950s and is an example of the 1950s post-war homes within the area. And while the project site is located within the old Escondido neighborhood district, it is not listed on the city's historical site survey and is not on the historic register list. This slide shows the existing site plan, and the area in red is the proposed area of addition and new front porch. On the left of this slide, the existing front facade shows the current design, and on the right is the proposed elevation. The proposed project would enclose that existing front porch and retain the existing roof line, and the front door would orient toward the western side property line and include a new front porch with stairway to the front walkway. Again, the proposed materials would be matched to the existing. This table just outlines the required design guidelines for the proposed project and shows that for all the applicable portions to an addition to a single-family residential structure within the historic neighborhood that is not designated, that it is consistent with those guidelines. And so with that, staff recommends that the Historic Preservation Commission conduct design review of the proposed redesign and recommend approval to the Interim Community Development Director for approval. And that concludes staff's presentation, and the applicant is present this afternoon as well.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions of staff? Does anybody want to have questions of the applicant? Seeing none, we'll just open this up to commissioner discussion, comments.
So the old Escondido neighborhood is a historic district, and that in and of itself is one resource, a district. and it is made up of many other items within the district, and it is not consistent with the design guidelines for the site planning for the addition on the front. So I would be having a negative vote actually on this. I would not recommend it.
Commissioner Hanlon, I have a couple of questions, and I'm relatively new to this board. The pictures that you basically show, they're not current. The pictures that are shown here. The picture on the window on the very right has since been removed, as has the one right around the corner from it, which you can't see, and they've been boarded up with plywood. The window on the very left behind the lattice is an aluminum replacement of some kind that doesn't match the window in the center. I don't know. I don't really know what's being asked of us here. I'm a bit confused because there's really not much left of this address.
So what is, for clarification, Commissioner, what is being asked is similar to what was in the last item, that it was a design review to make any kind of recommendations regarding the design of the addition for the interim director to consider as part of their review of the certificate of appropriateness. So if you have any recommendations associated with any kind of modifications to the proposed design, again, as before, I would include those as part of your recommendation, or motion, I should say, in terms of the recommendation to the interim director.
Okay, I'd like to agree with Commissioner Purvis. This neighborhood, ordinarily, I'm pretty flexible about remodels. However, this house should look like it does in that picture to begin with, and it doesn't. It's been boarded up for years and under construction, and I've actually had my real estate agent call about this several times to find out if it's going back to the bank because of its condition. It should be a contributor to the neighborhood, being post-war. 9th is a busy street. People drive by it all the time. I think it's a crime what has happened to this house. I think they ought to be asking for a certificate to return it to its original state and then move forward with an addition, because it's in dire neglect. I'm very disappointed with it. I would not approve the plans. I can't find anything about these plans that I like. The roof is horrible. There's a flat roof on the enclosed porch or whatever it is, and the back is a different slope. The whole roof plan is not congruent. I can't support this either. Any other comments?
Commissioner Cowan, I agree with you.
Okay, I'm going to open up the public hearing and let you come up. Come on, come up to the podium, please. Go ahead.
So this client has bought this house or has this house and has it in a decrepit state, and they're trying to improve this property so that they can actually live in it. And these old homes, they have a very limited front area to the home, and we were trying to add, give her a big bedroom, but that's not actually happening because you denied us and said we could not add on to the front. So we were just trying to enclose the porch, which actually has been done on several homes in that neighborhood as well. So we're trying to keep in the spirit of keeping this home looking the same. We are replacing the windows with some wood frame windows so that they will look period. I'm not sure that was relayed, but that is the intent as well. And to replace that stucco, we just don't want to change. We're going to put new stucco on it. We just don't want to change the color because we want to keep it in the same tone. We were trying to keep it a simple color scheme before, but that got denied. So we're just going to keep it the same. But I mean, it's hard when you're trying to live in a place and trying to upgrade the place to how you would like it. I mean, these are residences that live here.
Well, this is not unusual to have to live in something and remodel it as you're going.
Right, and we're trying to do that.
Well, I don't know why you can't try to maintain the historic integrity of the front of the house. It just seems to me that there's something you could do that would.
Would you rather us enclose the porch and build out another porch in front?
Why are we so intent on enclosing the porch from?
Because there's no room inside, and she would like to enlarge the kitchen living room area. It's very, very tiny in that front area. So she just needs a little bit more wiggle room.
To be honest with you, we've designed floor plans before. I don't know what the inside of the place looks like to be able to render a, could you do this, could you do that? I know that this is the second time it's come to us, and I don't really feel like the plan you're bringing forward is good enough to pass, to be honest with you. One other question. What historic color scheme did you find the white with the black trim? I don't see that as being in the...
Well, that's not in here at all. That was rejected earlier.
Okay.
So that's not in this scope of work. So I guess not good enough is not really substantial enough to move forward for us.
Could you move to the picture with the new proposed front? The proposed front of this house looks absolutely nothing like the historic house that it started out to be. And therefore, I will oppose it. And I don't know what else to tell you other than in the past, people have bought into the neighborhood and tried to do things that they couldn't do, and they couldn't do it.
It looks really similar to the existing house, actually.
The proposed elevation looks similar to the existing?
The windows in the front are all the same. We've only changed the door into a window, and we've moved the porch over to the side.
Am I not seeing this correct? Does anybody up here agree with her that the proposed front elevation looks like the original elevation? I'm not seeing it. You have 1, 2, 3 windows there, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4 windows here. You got hip and you got gable.
The doors, actually, the roof isn't changing at all, so that is just as a mistake on the existing elevation. It looks like, the roof looks like the proposed elevation. If you look at the existing picture, you'll see that.
Okay, I see.
The roof is not changing at all. Sure. And that was part of our attempt to try to keep it as it used to be.
Chair Span, may I say something? Nicole?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Purvis. So when the primary issue is you have changed the orientation of entry by putting the door on the side, and you're enclosing that entry porch.
Right.
That's the issue. And so
why is
that
the issue?
Well, if you you're in a historic district. If you go back to the design guidelines, as well as the Secretary of the Interior standards, which inform those guidelines, you'll see that that is inconsistent with those guidelines. I don't know why staff would think that
we're not allowed to enclose a porch?
Not the front porch. That would be a very rare situation unless you could demonstrate that it was something that had been historically done with this particular property. You have old historic photos that show it different.
Well, we have
that.
pictures of homes that are in that same neighborhood that have done similar things.
But we're talking about this house, and they may or may not have been, I don't know if they were given, we can't really talk about their property because we don't know anything about it. Maybe they did it, maybe it's a code violation. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what house is. Well, I can tell you that if that porch was enclosed, I mean, you're getting the certificate of appropriateness. You're pursuing that. So if someone did that, it was either an oversight from somebody in the planning department or the commission, which I don't think the commission would have ever approved it. But on this particular case, we've recommended back in February that your additions be put in the rear. I'm quite positive we would have recommended that.
That is not the area they would like to expand on, because that's not their living area. Those are just bedrooms back
I understand. There. So there's a lot of flexibility with designing in the back and the rear, in the rear side of it,
so
towards the back.
What are our options for redesigning in the front?
So you have very limited options for the street view because you are in a historic district.
And what are those limits?
You can review the design guidelines, and they will tell you clearly, and you can also go to the Secretary of the Interior Standards for the Treatment of Historic Properties. This is a historic district. This property is a contributor to that district, and I'm sure staff can help you find those. If not, there's actually the Old Escondido Neighborhood Historic Association. They could probably help you with that if you need it. I could forward something to the planner to provide that for you. I mean, it sounds like you have knowledge, design knowledge.
So everybody has to keep the exact same floor plan. And what I felt like we were doing was keeping the spirit of a cottage-style 1950s home. And that doesn't matter.
I didn't say that. You can, there's additions are acceptable in the rear of the property, typically. The front one, I don't support. And it was the same thing in February.
It's too bad.
I'm sorry.
You know, thinking back on the post-war houses, the only one I can recall on 8th Street where they wanted to move the living, where they had a garage in the front, and they wanted to move the living space into the garage, and they left the door there, and it all remained the same, but on the inside, that at least was what we approved. I don't know what happened. Did you wish to speak? Would you state your name, please, for the record?
Letitia Orozco. And I'm helping with the design. So here's the concern that we have. All the inside, those windows are not original. So I don't know when this house was considered part of the historical committee or society. So based on that, and then the house literally across the street has that exact view, right there, that exact view. The side porch, they only have 2 windows, 2 very small windows, and their entrance is to the side, literally across the street from that house. So if that's the case, how come she can go out and see that that was approved, but
we're not talking about the house across the street. We're talking about what's in front of us, which is this house right here. If the house across the street did something without permits, they're possibly liable for code violation. And one of my complaints is the city has not had teeth to go after things that were done against what we said they could do. And there are several out there. I'm not going to talk about the one across the street because I drive 9th every day, 2-3 times a day, and I go by this house. And we can sit here and argue, but I don't find the proposed elevation historic in any sense of the word.
So
it is a historic district, and this house is what we call a contributor. It adds to the ambiance of the neighborhood and the historic feel. There's a significance to post-war houses in that soldiers coming back, just getting on their feet. They built smaller houses. They most all have a single-car garage. We like to maintain the look of the post-war architecture. That's why it might not be ideal what they want to build onto the back, but that is the only way they're going to increase their space.
And we're talking about the existing roof pitch that's going to stay that way, just make the porch to the left. That's a big problem for this committee. Is that what I'm understanding? Keeping the existing roof pitch.
Are you looking at the same picture that I am, the elevation plan?
Yes.
The proposed elevation and the existing elevation, the way it should look?
And that's the way it's going to remain. That's what Lori was trying to explain. We're not changing that. What you see on the right on the proposed is incorrect, the roof pitch. It's going to
I'm not talking about the roof pitch. I'm talking about enclosing the porch. Enclosing the porch is unacceptable, and it's not going to pass this commission. So, I mean, if you come back and you see different commissioners up here, it might pass. It'll never pass, personally. To pick up that much square footage for what you're doing to the front of that house is just not worth it, let alone going to fly.
You're talking about like 57 square feet?
Yeah, it's really small.
57 square feet. That's all we're asking for.
And you're destroying the front of the house for 57 square feet.
Along with the one in the front. I mean, that's part of the district. I mean, if you're driving by there, as you say you do twice a day, and you haven't seen that house across the street, that house, how is that acceptable? It's within the same community.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing.
Commissioner Cowan here. I Googled across the street, and I don't see what the...
I can give you the picture right now, if that's what you would like. Excuse me one second.
And if staff may interject on 2 points that were raised by commissioners during that discussion.
Yes.
So from staff's understanding, the design guidelines that are subject to the Escondido neighborhood, Old Escondido neighborhood district, have qualifications for homes that are listed and then homes that are not listed but are within the historic district. And those are the guidelines that are in that table in your staff report for homes that are within the district but not listed on the historic register. So that's the clarification point there. And then if staff could just get a summary of the suggested design recommendations for note-taking purposes so that we can discuss after, would be great with the applicant.
The articles you were talking about, the historical review articles that you listed quickly?
Commissioner Purvis, the document, it's actually the Secretary of the Interior Standards for the Treatment of Historic Properties, and it discusses contributors to historic districts. And then what the planner had just mentioned, the design guidelines. There's also, what is it, the Old Escondido Neighborhood Association, is that what it's called?
Right.
Commissioner
Old
Hanlon,
Escondido.
it's the Old Escondido Historic District or the Old Escondido Neighborhood Group.
Group, okay. They're very resourceful. There's also the library that has the documents, and there's the History Center right across the park, right here, that has those particular documents. They're online as well. They're very helpful. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing, please.
Yes, I'd like to show you the photo, if I may.
You can show me that all you want, but we're not talking about that house. We're talking about this house right here.
You're referring to the community.
He just asked for the.
Okay. Would you please bring that up here and so we can see it? And that public hearing is closed. Thank you.
What's right across the street?
This is literally across the street. I'm standing inside that porch taking that photo.
Yeah, the door is facing this way, and the
The
porch is
door,
covered.
the entrance is to the side, as the same as it would be here.
No, I have it right here, too. That's what I was talking about.
But you enter through the side. You don't enter face on with.
Commissioner Span, Nicole right here. Is there a way that we could look into whether or not there's a code violation for the property across the street?
I'm going to just put that on the city.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can, the commission can ask staff, request staff to go and take a look to see what the history is on that, and if there is an issue, we can definitely discuss what options are, if that's something you would like.
I think that we can give you direction. It's not on the agenda, so we're not going to make a motion out of it, but if we can give you that direction, that'd be great.
I don't know if they can, city clerk, I don't know, can they give direction, or is it a request in terms of, since it's not a item on the agenda?
So they can provide direction, cannot take a formal vote or action, but
Okay.
the direction you're receiving from them right now is appropriate.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, thank you.
Thank you. So now the city's asking for our specific suggestions, and Commissioner Purvis, if you'd like to start.
I'm sorry, about the design guidelines or
About
this?
what we're looking for as far as the front of the house.
Okay, I'm sorry. So for proposed design, I would like to not see that front porch enclosed. The windows need to be, you need to like investigate what the original windows were, 'cause it sounds like they're boarded up. Looks like with this particular photo in the packet that they are wood. If they are wood and were originally wood, you'd find that information on the county building residential record. Then you'd need to replace those in kind. If they are steel, which is sometimes the case for this particular age property, then you would replace those in kind or something similar like an aluminum clad exterior window. So basically, if a design suggestion would be to look at maybe adding the additional square footage that you desire in the back, the rear of the house. If you need to move some walls on the interior, that is not under our purview. and that could probably provide you with the space that you're seeking. You're welcome.
Any other, does that answer your question, or does that give you some?
If those are the consensus design recommendations for the review, then yes, thank you.
Okay. So, do we have to make a motion to deny this?
I would advise doing so.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I so move.
It's moved, do I have a second?
Commissioner Purvis, yes.
Okay, moved and second to deny this motion. All in favor of denying it?
Motion approved.
You have 4 unanimous votes to deny PL 20-0612. We're going to move on to current business H3, the Bingham, PL 21-0304. Now, we do have the oral communication.
Yeah, great. I'll read this item into the ledger. One moment. Let me get my timer up. Okay, this comment is coming from the Save Our Heritage Foundation. It says the following. Save Our Heritage organization has reviewed the staff recommendation on historic structure assessment report for the arts and crafts era bungalow at 1405 South Escondido Boulevard. SOHO finds this resource to be highly intact and significant under Criterion 3 of the California Register of Historical Resources, as well as Criteria 2, 3, and potentially 7 of the City of Escondido Historic Register. The Historic Preservation Commission should not concur with the staff recommendation, but instead designate this resource for significance under various local criteria. Originally constructed in 1913 in an unknown style and remodeled in 1925 into an arts and crafts era resource, the consultant report identifies this change as significant to the evolution of the building and not an adverse impact. Character-defining features still change as significant to the evolution of the building and not as an adverse impact. Character-defining features still present include the low-pitched front gable roof, deep eaves, horizontal wood clapboards, recessed full-width entry porch with modest square support posts, attic venting, wood sash windows, and one diamond-paned entry porch with one transform window on the front facade. As noted in the consultant's report, SOHO concurs the rear deck and small shed are reversible and do not impact the building. While this is a modest bungalow that has updated in the arts and crafts era style, the working class nature and evolution of the resource are part of the significance and should be evaluated within the report. It is imperative that the preservation of Escondido's historic built environment reflect the diversity of the community present during that same period. Identified as historically significant in the updated 1990 Escondido Historic Survey, SOHO finds this bungalow retains integrity of location, design, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. The consultant report also finds integrity of location, design, and materials are present. However, the report ignores the workmanship in the diamond pane transom and wood sash windows, trim, porch detailing, and various other features of this modest bungalow. Since this house was constructed prior to the auto court, now demolished, and supporting buildings, it still retains integrity of feeling and association, which the consultant dismisses based upon removal of other later resources. This bungalow was constructed in 1913 at the present location as a single-family home. While the loss of a later auto-oriented use of the parcel contributes to the larger historical context, it does not remove integrity of feeling and association since these resources were not present in 1913 and don't contribute to the use of the bungalow. Last, Appendix B of the consultant's report, page 72, the historical assessment by planner Paul Bingham states, that line, while not being of great architectural or historical significance alone, appears to be a boilerplate entry which indeed is included in a majority of the entries in the EHSS. And that concludes 3 minutes, so no longer able to read the rest.
Okay, I read it. Has everybody read the rest of this? Okay, so thank you. Now, the city presentation, please.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. Sean Nicholas, project planner. This is PL 210304 called the Bingham. Just to give some background and what the request is before you this afternoon. Originally built in 1913 and then remodeled and mainly rebuilt in 1925. The site has changed hands multiple times over the course of its history, and has also, as stated previously in the letter we just read, has had a variety of uses on the site. On the city's historic survey, the location is identified as only being historic in terms of contributing to a district, not as an individual structure. And the request before you is to determine that this is not a historic resource, consistent with the findings of the historic structure analysis provided this evening. So here's, for reference, the site. It's located at the corner of South Escondido Boulevard and West 15th Avenue. The green arrow there points to the identified structure. So the city has in particular criteria for historic resources to be added to the list off just the survey into the a designated historic resource, and there are 7 criteria for structures, one of which is that the structure has to be 50 years old or more, which the structure clearly is. And then there does require one additional finding. Both staff and the consultant reviewed the site, and it was determined that no second criteria was met in terms of defining this as a historic resource. As the commission may or may not know, this was previously submitted and presented to the HPC without a grander vision of what is potentially going to be developed. And so this is a rendering of the potential project. It's an affordable housing project located there, named after Paul Bingham, our recently retired assistant planner. And thanks for his help in terms of shepherding the project through and in guidance. So just between all of us, I think that's a pretty good honor for a planner to get. So with that, again, the staff is recommending that the HBC concur with the analysis that's been provided in staff's analysis, and that determine that the residence is not a historic resource. And that concludes staff's presentation. Staff and I believe the applicant are available for any questions of the HBC.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of staff? Okay. Would the applicant like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Greg Dracos, and I'm here with Cross Real Estate Investors. So we're currently proposing the project on the site. Happy to take any questions, and otherwise, listen to any deliberation.
I have one question. It's probably not really relevant to our scope of this project, but the picture that we just saw of the proposed, is that actually what you're looking to move forward with?
Yeah, so the project that's correct. I mean, it's a rendering, so give or take it will go through.
Well, in the past on different commission, we've approved something and then it's gone through the Sacramento bonus, and then the city bonus and the transfer from other undeveloped properties. Is this actually what it's going to look like? The Rowan, for example, when we approved that, it didn't look anything like it does now. And once it was, and that was on the Planning Commission, once it was approved, it went through all of the bonuses that they were able to get, density bonuses, to come up with what they've got now. I just want to know, on Escondido Boulevard, the feeling along the boulevard, is this, I mean, I'm not into heavy density, but the project is probably inevitable. I mean, at that density.
Yeah, I think, Commissioner, what I can tell you is, as you said, this isn't the item before the commission, but what I can tell you is that in terms of reviewing this project, having being the planner on it, the design and the components that you see in that rendering generally is what it is. Now, it might be further refined. We just provided comments regarding that, but in terms of your concerns regarding density bonuses, that's already being taken into consideration now. So everything you see in those components, those design elements, are what is being proposed and what staff also will expect to see in the built environment.
Thank you. That's just what I was.
Perfect.
Commissioner Cowan, I have a question for planning staff. Did the letter that was read to us at the beginning of this from the Save Our Heritage organization, is that considered by you, and does it change any of your perspective?
I would say that yes, staff has reviewed the letter and has gone back through and reviewed the references and the components in the analysis and made sure we were still comfortable with the recommendation that was being provided to HPC this afternoon. And pretty much spending most of the day after receiving that this morning, I would say staff still stands by its recommendation in terms of the status of the structure and believing that it is not a historic resource.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Purvis, I have to say that I'm a little, I'm surprised that you would name the project after the preservation planner that had been working here for, I don't know, 25 years. I feel like it's a little bit of a taint towards us as a commission. I know that Mr. Bingham actually was pretty harsh on the consultant, both consultants from the get-go, and was really, really particular about this project. And I just feel a little, I don't know if it was necessary for staff to basically tell us why it was named that. It's odd, makes me uncomfortable, to be honest. And I don't know, we brought up a lot of questions. We had a lot of comments back in November of 2020, and I don't necessarily see that the consultant revised the report to address those concerns. The property has, what, 3 minor modifications to it from the circa 1925 period that are basically a chicken coop, a shed roof to the garage, and a small rear porch. And those are not additions that would preclude that property from historic designation, and it would most certainly doesn't interrupt the historic integrity of the building. I understand that the consultant's report, the second one, this particular company had reviewed it, if I can remember the name of it, it was a proposed historic district for the transportation corridor, which addressed some of the auto court structures that had been there that came in a little later, and then they're now gone. But it really didn't provide too much about this particular building within the context of Escondido, which is, I know, something that we had requested. I didn't really see it. Maybe it's here, and it's a pretty big, nice, good report. It's a nice pictures and stuff. I appreciate that. So my vote would be that to keep this on the historic register. I know it was identified. I know what that form said. And I don't think that a chicken coop, a shed roof to a garage, and a small addition at the rear precludes it from, precludes its historicity. It's been standing since at least 1925. And I just don't feel that the consultant addressed the questions that we brought up in November of 2020.
May I respond, or?
Yes, please.
First, I appreciate the comments. I mean, the first thing I'll say is, if everyone's unhappy with the name, we have no problem with changing it. The second thing I'll say is there's 3 reports, historic reports that have been completed, all 3 of which were completed or revised prior to our proposal of any project. And then the third thing I'll say is to just keep in mind, Commissioner Purvis, that the property itself, the building itself, is not historic or is not designated historic. Just to clarify it for the record, it was simply identified in the 1990 study as having some significance for what was previously there. But all of the other surrounding, I guess, would have been considered historic properties, or other buildings are now gone.
That's actually not correct. The original form, on page 1 in the little header, it says that it's a significant resource, and it was in 1992. And the only resource that it's looking at is what was present, which is the 1925 building.
The only
What we're
criteria, the
looking at.
50 years.
That's what we're looking at. No, the original resource form from the either 1983, I think it was the 1983, I'm looking for it, I know I saw it earlier, says that it's significant. I know you have to read.
It's page 176 of the staff
Thanks.
report.
I guess the electronic version. So in this one right here this one, everybody. It's referring to the existing building, which is what we're looking at now, what we're talking about. I'm just making that statement.
Sure.
And the fact that, I mean, the consultant's report states that this house has no integrity because of the modifications. It's a shed roof to a garage built between 1925 and I think it said 1950 something. A shed roof, a chicken coop, and a small addition at the rear. Those things don't preclude the historicity of the property. They just don't. If they did, we wouldn't be doing design review and approving things like that. So, thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Who said that? Did somebody say that? Okay, did somebody else want to speak on this?
My name is Glenn Schneep. I'm the trustee for the Schneep Family Trust that owns the property. And my family has owned this property for a long, long time. I took over as trustee after all the other trustees died of old age. We want to sell this property. We've tried to follow what the guidelines of the city gave us, getting these reports done. We used the people that the city recommended, but didn't seem to be good enough. And I'm tired of spending thousands of dollars on these reports and getting recommendations that this thing is not historic, and then you guys keep saying that it is. The language from the last report, which was a significant improvement over the first one, clearly states that there is absolutely nothing historic about this house. This chicken coop is no longer there. There's a garage back there, but it states here that it was never even part of the historical record. This house does not show up on any historical record. So you need to just say, look, it's not historic, and let's get on with it. There's a major project being proposed here for necessary housing in this city, and this is just like in the way. The house is a mess. The house cannot be fixed. The house, I mean, I could tear the house down with a baseball bat. It's that bad. So it's not historic. And if I can read from the report on the findings, no historic signage, landscaping, architectural resource, or landmarks within this project are eligible for listing on the CRHR or City of Escondido Register. See if I can get up this other part. Sorry, I'm having trouble expanding this. There we go. The assessment of 1405 South Escondido Boulevard, single-family residence and detached garage, has concluded that the original historic and architectural characteristics are not exemplary in any way. The buildings were not found to be architecturally or historically significant under any CRHR criteria and only meet City of Escondido Criterion 5 due to their historic age. However, neither building is associated with any historically significant persons or events, and a majority of the associated buildings in the original tourist complex on the parcel have been demolished. The 1405 South Escondido Boulevard residence was previously included in the historic survey, but not the detached garage. It is not listed historic property on the state or local register. It is not considered individually significant under any state or local criteria, and it is not considered eligible for listing as a contributing structure to any potential historic district due to the loss of its original historic context. Both of my studies that I paid for came up with a similar recommendation. This thing is not historic. Can I get a rubber stamp just saying no, it's not historic?
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and we're going to do a little discussing up here. And I want to start off by saying that the last time this was on the agenda, I did walk around the property, and the overall condition is horrible. I don't foresee anybody ever spending the money to bring that house up to what it should have been. It's true that there is some significance to it, but I don't think that the significance is substantial enough to stop the project from going forward. I went by there again today and I looked at it, and it's even worse than it was last time I went by and looked at it. It's not a contributor in any way, shape, or form to the neighborhood, because everything around there, with the exception of the Mason Lodge, which is certainly historic, that's the only thing left of the old neighborhood. I will certainly support the city recommendation to let this go forward. Any other comments?
Commissioner Purvis, I'm actually getting a little concerned about all of the demolition by neglect, the code compliance issues with people making modifications to their properties that are located in the old Escondido neighborhood without any type of certificates of appropriateness. And it does concern me. So while I understand the property owner's agitation with the consultant's reports, 100%, I understand that agitation. I see that I recognize the historicity within this property. I agree with the Save Our Heritage organization under the local criteria that is eligible for. Criterion 2, which is that the Escondido building embodies distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type, specimen, and are representative of a recognized architect's work and are not substantially altered. We're not talking about condition. We're talking about the actual historic integrity of it. Number 3 is, number 5 is it meets obviously the age criteria, which is 50 years of age or older. And then number 7, which hasn't been evaluated, is that the Escondido historic building that is one of a few remaining examples in the city possessing distinguishing characteristics. And I understand that you want to move forward, and this is part of moving forward and going through the process. Regardless of how our commission votes, you're going through the process, so that's a good thing. At least it's happening. And again, I apologize that you're unhappy with the outcome of your consultants. Okay, so we've actually had comments and discussions with staff about specific consultants and recommending specific consultants, because we've recognized that there are specific consultants that we seem to see the same thing no matter what project it is. And so anyway, that's where I stand. So thank you very much.
You know, I just want to comment on what Save Our Heritage organization. I don't completely agree with everything they said. I didn't see anything, the detail on the front porch. There's no detail on the front porch that would set that aside. The windows, I can guarantee, are not underneath the plywood, the leaded glass windows. There's nothing there but a shell, and it's it might be historic, but it's not worth saving. Any other comments?
Commissioner Hanlon, I drove past this somewhere, and I walked around that property last week, and I concur. I really think that there's, I really don't believe that, I concur with you that there's really nothing left.
Did you have something to say?
I don't feel that neglect of the property and lack of maintenance on it should be a criteria for deciding whether or not this is a resource. In this particular regard, we heard from the applicant that it's been in the family a long time. So apparently it's, and if they're seeking to sell it, and if the reason why we turn it down is that it's under-maintained, and this family has under-maintained it, that's a little bit incongruent with the idea of preservation. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, and it is not in the district either. So we need a motion one way or another.
And on that note, you can move to either approve, deny, or you could move to table this to your next meeting as well.
I would move to table this to our next meeting.
Commissioner Cowan, I second that.
Okay, it's been moved and second to move this to our next meeting. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, it is unanimous. PL 21-0304, currently known as the Bingham, will be on our next agenda, I trust. Okay. Okay, is there any oral communication from that? Concludes our regular business here. Any oral communication from anybody in the audience about anything? Seeing none, any comments from commissioners? Well, you all have a great Thanksgiving, and meeting is adjourned.